We are live. Hello. How y'all doing? Let me adjust my camera here a little bit. How are we doing? Happy Wednesday. It is another glorious day in the city, so I'm in good spirits. I'm always in good spirits. Outside of the state of our world, I'm always in good spirits. The state of our world is not having me in good spirits, but we can compartmentalize that for our conversation and for the work we do with our people. At least that's how I'm kind of handling things. All right. See, I've got myself pulled up here so I can chat with y'all. If you're live, say hello. Feel free to ask me questions as we're going through this. I want to make sure this is really valuable for you. Before we dive into our conversation today, I'm going to talk about what I actually focus on to make 40K cash months in my business without burning out. Before I dive into this, we are almost at May, which is so crazy to me. And May is a fun month. For me, it's my brother's birthday. It's a lot of fun things. We're going out of town for a little bit, but I am going to open up one additional week-long strategy intensive. I know a few of you have booked consults and have been interested in that, so I do have capacity to open up one of those. So as we're talking through this, if you're hearing this, if you're in a place where you want to dive into your strategy, whether that's your messaging, your marketing, you need more of a holistic strategy for that, your sales process, your next launch strategy, that is available to you. I'll make sure I drop a free consultation for that. So I'll open up one of those in May. Okay, let's dive into this. So I wanted to have this conversation because a couple of weeks ago, I shared about breaking through my own upper limit and having my biggest cash month in 9 years. I made, was it $41,134,000? I was like, I want to make sure I share the exact number. And I'm super proud of that. I'm celebrating that. We had that conversation. And the win for me there is more the internal shifts that that upper limit and breaking through that represented. And as I've been thinking about it, one of the conversations I wanted to have and something that feels important to talk about is, yes, I'm super excited. Like, I'm not minimizing that in any way. I'm very excited about that. But the truth is I've been making 40K cash months in my business for years and years. I think I had my first 40K cash month 3 or 4 years ago. I don't remember. And I've been making consistent 25K to 40K cash months for, I think, at least 3, maybe 4 years. I don't know the exact math on this, but for quite a long time. And I'm obviously having a pop month and breaking through those limits is fun, and it's fun to talk about, and it's fun when it represents those upper limits. I think our online space can almost over glamorize one single month over sustainability and over quarters and over years. And so I want to have a conversation a little bit more about, what I'm most proud of in my business and what I'm most grateful for in my business is the consistency we have, and not only that we have those sorts of months, and not only that I make multi-six figures, but that I pay myself in profit multi-six figures every year, which means I take that home from an all one-on-one model. And so I want to talk a little bit about what I focus on, because when I looked at that big month, or when I look at any of my months, but particularly the 41K cash month, I think what's interesting to note is that I didn't have a launch. I didn't change my strategy. I didn't have a new offer. I didn't raise my prices. I have an all one-on-one model, as most of you know, and I still took days off. I generally plan a couple of half days and sometimes some full days off from client calls, just so I can get personal stuff done. So you could still do that with a one-on-one model. There wasn't anything dramatic that I changed. And I think people also always want to, well, then, like, how are you making that money, or how did you do that? And so I want to talk about some of the things I really do focus on and put quite a lot of attention on, because obviously I am focusing on things, and I'm quite intentional in my strategy. I'm quite intentional. I'm very intentional. I always have been in my business, and that's not necessarily what I was going to talk about today, but I think that is maybe helpful to hear. While I didn't have any of those big things happening, and I think that's just helpful to normalize, I am incredibly intentional, and I have been for, I'd say, nine years. I'm just very, very intentional with what I do in my business, how I spend my time, what I focus my time on, kind of what we do with strategy. And so maybe that's just a helpful thing to hear. But I do want to break down a couple of things that I don't think we talk enough about in our online space. And these are like the real things I focus on. And obviously, there's a foundation under this. I didn't start out with 25K to 40K cash months, right? I started out making $800 a month, and then $1,000, and then $3,000, and then I had my first $5,000 and $7,000. I think I literally went in order for a while. It was like $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, then $10,000. Then I hit a 24K cash month, and then 40K actually wasn't too long after that. Anyway, point being is there's obviously a foundation under all of this. So what I'm talking about is more what I'm currently focusing on, but I'm not minimizing the importance of that foundation. But if you have questions around any of the foundational pieces, drop those in the chat. I'm very happy to be an open book and answer any questions here. One of the first things, I wrote an email that I sent out, I think on Monday this week, that quite a few of you responded to. So I think feels like it's worth talking about. I have 4 things here I'm going to share today and maybe a fifth if we have time, but before key things I'm going to share. The first one here that I shared, and I think this is one, please do not bounce after this. I'm going to share this, and this is the one no one wants to hear. And so hang with me, because I think all of these are important. We don't talk about them enough, but I'm sharing this one first, just in case you don't listen to the rest of this conversation, because I feel like I get on a soapbox about this, but I cannot like preach this one enough. I am willing to leave money on the table, and I think that is one of the biggest reasons I have not just the money that I make in my business, but that I have the sustainability and the profitability and the ease in my business, and that I'm able to do it without burning out, and that I'm able to have a business I like. And I know this sounds so counterintuitive, so just hear me out on this one for a little bit. I think our online space speaks so much to how do we grab. I was just talking about this with someone who emailed me who was saying, they were taught basically to grab all the money on the table. And I think that is what we speak to. Gosh, I'm sure I use it even. I'm sure I have copy out there that's like, let me help you not leave money on the table. And so I think this is nuanced. Of course, within our businesses, we want to maximize the sales we make, and we want to maximize profitability. For any business, whether you have a one-on-one or a one-to-many, whether you're selling courses or memberships, masterminds, whatever that is you're selling, of course, we want to maximize, again, the sales we're making and the money we're making. So what I'm not saying here is that I don't focus on sort of maximizing that in my business. And with a nuance, honestly, I have an all one-on-one model. If I was really focused on grabbing all the money on the table, I wouldn't have a revenue share model. I would just jack my prices up and raise my rates, because not to like sound overinflated, I've been doing this for 9 years. I'm good at what I do. My clients have incredible results. I've supported clients to multi-$6 million in their business for 9 years since year one in business. I've created incredible, sustainable results. I've seen behind the scenes and helped people with almost every business model. So not because like I would just jack my prices up, but because I could, like, there's actually a demand and a value exchange that would make sense for that. So if I was just trying to like grab all the money on the table and I wanted to make more money faster, I would do that, or I would honestly just offer something else to y'all. I have the audience. I help other clients to do this. I would just sell something else, right? I could sell a course or a group program or whatever that is. And I always give myself permission to, who knows, maybe in the future I will offer something else. There's nothing wrong with that if you have more than one offer. But what I have found to be true is when our focus is just on how do I maximize all the money at the expense of what's in service of my people, what's in service of me and what I want to do, what's in service of what I can do best, what's in service of my bandwidth, what is in service of my team and my energy, what is in service of actually creating something I'm proud of and a body of work and building demand and really having something that creates those great results. When we're trying to maximize grabbing all the money at the expense of that's when we get ourselves in hot water. So I am all for, literally just had a conversation with another client where I'm like, we are not leaving this money. Like we are going after money in your business, because she's pulling back a little bit on that. So I don't want you to hear I'm willing to leave money on the table and that I'm like not willing to sell or fill my spots or anything like that. However, if this is helpful to hear, with that kind of all in mind, that 41K cash month, I think that month probably more than ever, I probably not turned away, but had conversations with people who are wonderful humans who I didn't think were the right fit for what I'm best be able to support people with. And that is leaving money on the table. So even within those sales conversations, I have just found over and over again how staying in my lane, staying focused on client delivery, staying focused on the way I want to show up and work, but also staying focused on working with right fit clients and the clients that I really believe I can best support, that are the best match for the type of work I do. That means sometimes leaving money on the table is also the best way to make money in your business and to do so sustainably. Again, when I say no to a client, it's not because they're not, if you're anybody I have said no to, it's not because you're not wonderful and I don't believe in you or your business or anything like that. It's just my particular skill set. I just know at this point what I'm the best at helping people with and who I best believe I feel like I'm a fit to support and serve. And I think staying focused on that does mean saying no to money on the table, so to say, and saying no to clients who would be willing to pay you and hire you. And I've just found over and over again how that only supports our growth, even if temporarily that means a I don't know, say no to a sale or say no to a client there. And so I could probably just have a whole conversation around being willing to leave money on the table. But what I always think about is if I'm saying no to money, again, the nuance here is I am also saying yes to a lot of money. So I'm not saying no to all the money on the table. I'm just willing to leave the money on the table that I just think was never mine to begin with, right? A client who is a wonderful human but isn't the best fit for the work I do, or an offer that's a really, really great idea. Y'all, I have my cell phone here. I should like show you how I have just this week alone, I came up with 3 new program ideas that will probably never see the light of day. I have so many ideas, right? But saying no to those ideas because I want to say yes to a one-on-one client, or opening up an intensive spot next month, or saying no to that because I know that is a great idea, but every time I say yes to that money, right, I have to say no to money somewhere else in my business. That is what helps me to sustain and to scale in my business. And again, I just, the way I think about it is like, it sounds so like weird to say, but like, what's the money that's mine in my business, and what was just never meant to be mine? And if I can stay out of like trying to be greedy and grab it all, then I can have that energy exchange, right? Then I'm able to maximize what is meant to be mine, or like the way it comes through. I think it's Amanda Francis. I always want to give credit where credit is due. I heard someone say this where, depending on how woo you are, if we think about money as more like an energetic thing, I know some of you are not woo at all, but hang with me for this concept, that generally like there's so much abundance of money in the world, and so like we can never grab it all anyway, so to say, is the way I think about it. But I think it was Amanda Francis who was saying this, that basically our offers are, it's sort of like the conduit in the way that money can flow to us. And so I like to think about it that way. I like to think there is more money, and I'm available for all of us to have all the abundance in the world, but like we literally can never grab it all. And when we try to grab it all, right, it's like trying to fill a bucket that's full, right? It sloshes around everywhere. But if I pick the bucket and the offers and the clients and the work that is meant to be mine that I really want to do, then I create the channel, the flow for that to come through. All right, hopefully that lands. Helena says, one-on-one coaching rules. You are an amazing coach. I love you so much. You are also an amazing coach. And one-on-one, let's be clear, I am biased. I'm so biased, but I've been doing this for 9 years. I really do think it rules. I think it's the best. And Alice says definitely woo. Yeah, here for the woo. I think it's just helpful to, I think the woo is also practical in some ways, like if we think about it that way. So that always helps me if I think about it from that lens. I'm going to jump onto the other topic, but just the other example here that comes up for me, I think about this with my marriage. I have a wonderful relationship. I thought we've been together for 9 years. I was wrong. My husband yesterday, he's like, we've been together for over 10 years, honey. It's going to be our 11-year anniversary. So clearly I do not know maths or numbers and underestimate things. But I think about that, to have this wonderful relationship. I think I have a unicorn of a husband. I had a very not unicorn of a relationship, and many of you know my story. I had a very interesting relationship prior to that. But for me to have that relationship, I dated a lot of people. I was single for 5 years. I dated a lot of people, and I had to kind of be willing to go all in on the relationship, right? Be willing to leave other relationships, other possibilities on the table so that I could maximize this relationship. We're total nerds, and I mean in the best way possible, in that like we carve out time to like work on our growth together and how we're filling our relationship bucket and like what we're doing to like deepen our intimacy. Like we do all these beautiful, wonderful things, but that requires like focus, time, and energy. And that wouldn't be possible if I was like trying to grab all the attention and like multiple relationships. No judgment to anybody who wants multiple relationships or anything like that. But I think it's just sort of a similar analogy of when we try to grab everything that's not ours, it makes it really hard to actually maximize or to have like and deepen into what is ours and what's in front of us. So that is the money on the table thing. And just from a really practical standpoint with business, this might not have been true 9 years ago, but particularly in our climate today, it is saturated. It does just take, I'm trying to think of how do I want to frame this. I don't want to create limiting stories, but it does just take more in general to run a business and to book clients and to sustain a business than it did a couple of years ago. I feel like in 2020 and before, you could just like blink online and make money, and that's just not the case anymore. And that's not a bad thing. I think it's a beautiful thing. I think it's actually weeding out it's just weeding some people out. And I think it's helping people to get better at their craft and get better at what they do and get better at their delivery. But if that's the case, it's just really tough to over time sustain large income months and years in a profitable way without burning out if you're trying to do a gazillion things, because it's really tough for you, even if you have a team, right? You have to train your team, even if you have automations and all this, all of that takes time to implement, to set up, to run. It's just really tough to do all of that. And if you're trying to grab all of the money as opposed to the money that's meant to be yours. I'm going to go on to the next one because otherwise I feel like I will geek out about that one. But this was the other. Sorry, I'm not going to go on to the next one. I just had a note for myself. So what that means, being willing to leave money on the table, is again being willing to say no to clients that aren't a fit, being willing to say no to misaligned opportunities. I think this year I have said no to more summits, to more speaking opportunities, to more like guest teaching opportunities than I probably ever have, just because I've been in business for so long. Not like because I'm like patting myself on the back, but I've been doing this for 9 years. So I've, people reach out to you. I've said no to more ideas that I could have created. I've said no to probably more things than I ever have. And I'm also making more money than I ever had. And that is that is a direct correlation from one to the other. I know for a fact if I had said yes to all of those opportunities that came through my door, I would have been spread really thin, and it would have been really tough for me to bring in the revenue that I have. So more is not always more. Sometimes less is more. Okay, the next one here, I wish we talked about this one more in our space. It is not sexy, but I think this is probably the secret of all secrets, that if we could all just focus on this a little bit more, our business would get so much easier, making money would get so much easier. But it's focusing on client delivery or focusing on offer delivery. It's kind of like what I was just speaking to in terms of, it just takes more in 2025 to run a business and to create sales and to serve sales. And I think we just also have more discerning clients and buyers than ever before. We're not in a world where, especially since we can look pretty much anything up online, where people just want to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on a course that's just got some slapped together videos that we downloaded 2 days ago. And I'm not making fun of anyone, but I think we just it's a conversation worth having. And I think there are ways you can make quick money still in our online space, but that is very, very different than what I'm talking about, where I've been making this kind of money for years and years and years, and literally years and years and years. And I think part of that is when we're just slapping something together and not focused on delivery and not focused on the quality of, and not just this isn't about, I know I have so many perfectionists in this group, so this isn't about you need to be perfect or go get another certification. For all of my people who are hearing this and now I need to go study more, that is not what I mean at all. But I do mean sometimes we get, I don't know that it's this group so much, but in our online space, there's just such a narrative that's how can we work as little as possible? How can we automate everything, have the soft life, have passive revenue, which I'm all for as well. But it's almost just how can we do everything but the very thing our business is designed to do, which is to create a product and service that solves a problem, that supports someone, that helps someone to get a result. It's almost like we've lost the forest for the trees for what our businesses are designed to do. And this is, I think, such a simple shift when we can remember businesses are actually designed to serve people, right? If people are, I have coffee here, the company that makes this coffee, it kind of doesn't matter to me what's going on for them personally, or how many hours they are. Not that I want people to work out, but what matters to me is, are they creating and giving me an organic, yummy coffee bean? I don't know if that's the best example. I always have my lip gloss. Same with the lip gloss, right? What matters to me as the consumer is this delivering what I'm paying for? So I think it's so simple, but I think we just forget about that a lot. And I focus on two things. One, communicating with my team, because without my team, my business doesn't run. And two, client delivery before anything else. I don't focus on marketing. I don't focus on sales. I don't focus on anything before team and client delivery. And that is just always my rule of thumb. If I have a busy day and my clients need me and they need a review, or there's just more going on in Basecamp, or someone needs an extra session, that is just always going to get priority over posting another reel or trying to make another sale. And I find most businesses have that flip-flopped around. Now, of course, long term, for any business to sustain, we need that holistic picture, right? We need to wear the CEO hat. We need to be marketing always. We need to be selling always, right? And doing the client delivery. But when I look at what is sustaining those results in my businesses. And when I look at my clients who are sustaining really big multi-six-figure $1 million plus years, they're all focusing on client delivery, and they're all prioritizing that as like the number one thing that matters, because that's literally where the revenue is coming from. And I think what we also forget, I mean, look, I have a revenue share model. So in many ways, this literally is where a lot of my money comes from in terms of client delivery, though can't control client results, and I would never, ever push a client to do something just so that I can make money. But of course, me focusing on clients and service directly impacts my revenue. So in that way, that's a big part there. But I think we also forget things like when we focus on client delivery, we have, and supporting our clients, whether again, it's one-on-one or you have a group program or a mastermind or a course with a different offer on the back end, and people have a good experience, it costs less time and energy to keep a client than it does to create a new one. So this is also how you create a lot of ease in your business and a lot more profitability. One of the things, I mean, I've shared this quite a bit, but one of the things that I think about in my business and how blessed we are is I have a very high retention rate with my clients. The majority of my clients renew and work with me for, say, at least a year. And I have many, many clients who worked with me for 3, 4, 5 years on my roster, right? Those re-signs make my business so much easier, and that just guarantees revenue in my business. But that is only possible because I focus on client delivery. If I was always focused on grabbing more money on the table, creating a new offer, whatever that new shiny object is, getting on another summit, doing this, doing that at the expense of client delivery, great, I'd be doing all of this, but I probably wouldn't have clients who feel so supported and held, and be more likely that I wouldn't have the revenue share income as well as those re-signs. And I think we also forget that when you serve clients well, when you focus on client delivery, when you create, let's go with the course model, because I think this happens a lot in course models where, I think in the past there was just a world where it's like people were selling, you could slap together a course and sell it for thousands of dollars, which you can sell the first time around, but it's really then hard to get great testimonials, to get great feedback, to have word of mouth marketing, to have people who shout you out, to be the, Amy Porterfield. I feel like she's been coming up a lot as just an example. I actually don't know a ton about her work, but I know she sells courses, and I know she's made, like $50 million or something like that. I know from the little I know of her and her business and her work, one of the things I know is that is someone who really focuses on client delivery and really refining their product as opposed to just slapping together things. And so that, I would say this, like, if there was a secret, like that, you do still need to market, you still need messaging, you still need sales, but if you have great client delivery and you serve your people well and you help them get results, you make all of the marketing and sales so much easier, because that is also, right, like I sell based on my client delivery and results. Like that's also why people want to hire me. That is also what I speak to in my marketing. That is also why I get referrals. That is also why people stay with me, right? So you can see how this really feeds everything else you're doing as opposed to the other way around. There's only so much shiny false marketing we can do that can make up for really not caring about our clients or not caring about delivery of our product or our offer. Helena says, who's your team of people? You mean like who's on my team? So my team has been, maybe this is helpful for everyone to hear. My team, I have cut it down dramatically over the years because our business has got so much more simple. Back in 2020, when I had my podcast and things were a lot busier, I also had like 29 clients. I had an OBM, podcast editor, a copywriter who was repurposing content, and 2 VAs. Now we have an OBM and 2 VAs. So it has been simplified quite a bit on the back end, and everybody is part-time. And so I'm happy to do, if you have more questions, I'm happy to do more of a live stream, but if this is helpful for people to know, because I was just talking about this with one of my clients, my VAs are more like my second set of hands, so they do more like tasks and like things that don't need to be done by me in my business. And then my OBM is more my second brain or my right hand, who's more holding the back end of the business and project managing and making sure things are running smoothly and kind of staying top on, we're talking about client delivery, right? Staying top on things to make sure clients are getting their sessions booked in and that they're getting gifts or reminders, or just different things are flowing there, but also really holds the moving pieces. I don't have an overly complicated business, but we put out quite a bit of content. So things like making sure when I have a masterclass that all the different moving pieces, that I'm on top of my stuff and that other team knows and is on top of their part so that everything kind of runs on time. Let me know if you have any other questions about that. Happy to share any and all the things. All right, I'm going to go on to the next one here because otherwise y'all know I will just talk for way too long. Okay, so the third thing here that I focus on is really letting my strategy work for me. And again, I feel like these are all so simple, but these are all things I coach my clients on. I think simple does not always mean easy. I think one of the biggest things that kind of messes people up in the online space and that costs businesses a lot of money in terms of the profit and take home. You're welcome, Helena. And again, any other questions, happy to share on that. And one of the things I think also just really limits the amount of revenue you're able to bring into your business is reinventing the wheel in your business all of the time. I know that there are so many strategies and they all work, and I'm a strategist. I like, at my heart, I love strategy. I can like bang out a strategy with you in like 45 minutes on a call. Love it. Here for it. Love all the ways we can update strategies. And I know even in my business there are a gazillion different strategies I could be using that would work, but every strategy for it really to work takes time to implement, then to test, then to really refine, and then to have really work well for you. And the more we're running around chasing different things, the more we are stopping and starting things in our business, the harder we make it to get sustainable results. The less efficient we are and the less efficient our team is. So if you have team members, kind of I was just talking about like my virtual assistants, one of the reasons my team is so great and we're so profitable, aside from the fact that we cut down on team a little bit, is we've been using the same strategy and doing the same strategy for so long. We are so well oiled that my team has also gotten better and better. I have team members who've been on my team for, I think my longest VA, I think she's been on my team for 5 years at this point. Anyway, the point is they get to know me, my business, so much better, and it is so much easier for us to do things, but also to spot things and opportunities because we're just letting my strategy work for me instead of always recreating the wheel. And I cannot speak to this enough. If you're recreating the wheel all the time, that is going to do more harm than good. Again, all the strategies work. There's so many things we could do in my business, but it wouldn't make sense for me to do. I'm fully booked. We have spots open up from time to time. I open up a intensive from time to time. My strategy works if I just work it. If I start trying to do all of the things, I make it less likely that my current strategy will work and more likely that I just create a lot of work and burnout for myself. And honestly, I mean, this is one of the reasons we cut my podcast back a couple of years ago. I'm so tempted to bring it back, y'all, because I really loved it. But one of the things I looked at is that was just an additional thing I did not need to do because my strategy was working so well, and it cost me time, and it cost my team time, and it cost us money. And with a one-on-one model, what that meant is I was basically taking up a client spot with that. And so I really had to weigh the trade-offs of, do I want this podcast or do I want to work with another client, and kind of what were those trade-offs and expenses there. So I won't overharp on this because I feel like we talk about this a lot, but when you're reinventing the wheel, that will cost you more and more money. Really trusting your strategy and letting it work for you and working it better is like the secret of all secrets. It is just the thing that helps me so much. The other thing I think about is, because of course we've like implemented new strategies and done new things, my general rule of thumb is I will stack on a new strategy when my current strategy is already working and really well oiled, and if there's a need for it and I see a need for it, and then I really try to limit myself to 1, maybe 2 new strategies per year. So last year's a great example. The year before cut the podcast, the year before I think I started implementing Reels. Anyway, we started playing with Reels, so that's kind of a new strategy. It took me a while to master that, so I didn't add on anything new, and then towards the middle of last year, we started implementing ads as a way to replace posting in Facebook groups and to bring in new traffic. I'm actually quite obsessed with ads. I've gotten very good at them, which I did not expect. But that's it. I mean, that's all we added on. And with both of those strategies, that we really stacked them on top of what was already working, as opposed to doing something brand new. And what I mean by that is Those were two strategies that, again, were stacked on top of what was already working, which means they just added some gasoline to a strategy that was already working, as opposed to trying to create a whole. I always think about our strategy as really needing to be a holistic strategy, and it's not just one action we take. So reels are not my strategy in my business. They are one small thing, one small strategy we stacked on top for visibility and for a little bit of, for touch points with my audience, that plays into a holistic strategy that was already working and refined and well-oiled. Just like ads. Ads are not a whole strategy in your business. If that's your whole strategy, you're going to have a very expensive business. But because I already had a holistic strategy that was working really, really well and well-oiled, then I could stack on ads as a way to drive more traffic to a strategy that was already working and well-oiled. So that's really the way I think about that. We don't mess with my strategy unless, data is telling us that we need to adjust something, and then really let what is working work for us to work it better. And if we're adding anything on, I like to stack things that really help support what is already working, right? To be gasoline on the fire instead of trying to start a whole new bonfire. Just seeing if there's a question about, okay, no questions. The last one here is kind of picking up on that. If we have time, I'll share the other one. But that is making micro shifts based on data, not on emotion. And so this is similar to the letting what's working for you work, but this is, I think, one of the things I support my clients with so much. I'm like the most sensitive human being in the world. I have a big heart. I'm emotionally intelligent. I've got you on the mindset side of things. I can talk the woo. I understand nervous system regulation. And I am a very neutral, practical, strategic-minded. I don't even want to say it's masculine, because I feel like in some ways, I don't know if that's really masculine, but I think some people will call that traditionally masculine. I definitely can lean into, then we'll call it the feminine masculine sides of business. I can step on both sides, and use both in my business quite a bit. I think this is also feminine, but that's neither here nor there. But it's something I support my clients with quite a bit, because what I see happen so often for us is when we are, and I've talked about this a lot, but you get to have all the emotions in the world and feel your feels. Feel your feels. I cry multiple times a week. I cry at fucking commercials that make me happy. I cry at TV shows that make me sad. I'm all the emotions all the time. I'm an ex-actress, for crying out loud. And I don't let my emotions run my business. And I really have learned how to feel my emotions, process them, and then when I'm neutral, put on that practical strategic hat and to look at data. And then when I look at data, to remember, and this is the key thing here, most of us, when we look at data, when we're looking at things with emotion, we tend to really pendulum swing. If you're a client of mine, I probably talk about this a lot, where it's like, yes, you made the right shift, but instead of making a micro shift, you made this huge pendulum swing. And generally speaking, most of us in our businesses are micro shifts away from the results we want, or from sustaining the results, or from scaling. Most of us do not need to make a pendulum swing, but most of us, when we're operating from emotion, or when we look at data without understanding what we're looking at, we make these huge pendulum swings in our businesses. And that's what costs us money. That's what costs us sale. That's what costs us a lot of inefficiencies. That's what causes us to burn out, right? We just make these huge sweeping, okay, I wasn't doing anything before, I'm going to do 150% over here. I was doing 150% and it was too much, I'm going to pull all the way back, right? We just make these huge swings as opposed to making these micro shifts. I'm going to give you an example here so I can explain what I mean. But what I have found, and what I really focus on in my business, is we're making shifts all the time. I'm looking at data all the time. Yes, I let my strategy work for me, but I am always refining my strategy. I actually study the industry. I study my strategy, and I study our data pretty religiously, if not every day, quite a bit throughout the week. I'm a geek on that, but I am making micro shifts, not huge shifts. So let me give you an example. We'll use ads as an example. We have been running ads since about maybe summer of last year, maybe fall of last year, maybe anyway, it doesn't matter. I want to say 6 to 8 months. Let's call it 6 months I've been running ads. I know at this point, because we've got a couple of campaigns, my brain likes strategy, so ads was very easy for me to plug into. We are rocking them. We've got our cost per lead down. I've supported so many clients with ads at this point, just in terms of my brain gets that. We know how to optimize those. I know kind of what works in my business, what I can kind of expect in terms of cost per lead, conversion rate on a landing page with cold and warm traffic, and kind of what happens on the back end of the emails funnel. And I ran a new campaign recently, and the landing page conversion rate was just lower than, it was still good, but it was just lower than we usually get. And the cost per lead was a little bit higher than what we usually get. Still good, but I just know what's normal in my business. And so I looked at that, and if I had been emotional, I'm like, oh my God, that means, I always ask clients, what are you making it mean? Like, that means I suck, or like, this isn't working for me. If I got super stressed out, or like, whatever, I would have probably looked at that and be like, well, screw this, let's just shut them off completely, or this doesn't work for me, or I would have just thrown more money at the problem. Or if I had looked at the data and seen these things, I think if we're operating from emotion, I could have made this huge change and be like, I need to scrap everything. I need a different masterclass. I need a different landing page. I need different emails. As opposed to what I actually did is took a look at what was going on, and I just coached myself through it. I mean, this is literally what I did. I coached myself through it the way I would a client. I was like, well, let me see where things are first getting affected. Well, if it's ads, that means it's my creative, and it means it's my landing page. Let me look at what's going on there. And so I looked at it from as neutral as an eye as I could. And I was like, well, this is interesting. Here's some copy that I really like that I've put in my creative that's also in the hero section of my landing page. Hot tip here. I share this with clients all the time. Your hero section, meaning the section of your landing page before someone scrolls, is where most people aren't scrolling and reading all of our landing pages. That's kind of like it's like your subject line or your first line in your copy. It is your prime real estate and what tells people to read or not read, to bounce or not bounce. And so I looked at that and my ad creative, meaning the graphics and the copy, and I was like, there's some new copy and messaging that I'm using here that I'm obsessed with and I think is awesome. But if I step back, if I can take my emotion out of this, and if I can coach myself through this, the way I would coach myself through this is the way I would coach a client. I would say, well, this ads are going to cold audiences. This is going to a cold audience. Is this something that's really going to land with a cold audience that doesn't already know me? Or is this maybe a little too clever and fun and something that's more speaking to my warm audience? And what I thought about was like, this is great. I think it's great copy. I think it's just a little too nuanced and a little like, it's still converting, but it's not converting at the rate we want. I think that just means it's one notch too nuanced for cold audiences and even for my warm audience. How do I make this a little less nuanced, and how do I bring back some of my old messaging that's just a little bit more clear, direct, and less clever? So I made one change. Oh, I made two changes. I made one small change to my ad copy creative and one small change. I'm talking 2 sentences in my landing page. My landing page conversion went up by 15 or 20%. It was already good. It went up by 15, I think by 15%. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. And our cost per lead was already good, and we cut it down dramatically. I do not have the exact numbers, but it's now way below industry norms and averages. And I think we cut, I want to say it was like thirds of it down. Those were micro shifts based on data, not huge pendulum swing shifts based on emotion. That's what I mean there. And so I think this is where Helena and I were talking about how one-on-one, I want to read this comment from Kate. We're talking about how one-on-one coaching is so powerful. Look, I am biased, y'all. All I've been doing is one-on-one coaching for 9 years. Not all I've been doing, but the most of what I've been doing is that I work with my own coach I have for six and a half years. What I was sharing here was self-coaching, but still, I think having that one-on-one support is so invaluable for this reason, because it's just so tough for all of us, even when we're doing things right, to see the forest for the trees. And all of us have, I think, such a tendency when there's A, to look for problems that don't exist, and B, to, when we find something, to, especially if you're a high achiever, if you're a go-getter, if you're a recovering perfectionist, if you're type A, if you're any of those types of things, it's just so easy for us to be like, well, if this is wrong, right? Like, instead of making this little shift, like, that can't possibly make a big difference. What I need to do is make all of these changes. And more often than not, all of these changes and these huge pendulum swings are not it. It is almost always those micro shifts that are sometimes hard for us to see. Let me see what Kate has to say here. Kate says, yes, I love leaning into both too, strategy versus more flow feminine. I made myself so wrong because I thought I had to pick a side, but actually I love integrating both. Amen to that, Kate. I'm so glad to hear this and just to have that reinforced for everybody. I honestly, whether you identify as a male or female, however you identify, I think in business and in relationships, but I think in business, we honestly need to bring in both for a healthy, functioning business. And she says a double yes to processing emotions and learning how to get to neutral. Such a good conversation. So glad this is landing for you. And I hope for everyone too, this part is landing, and then just the reminder that really, really, really and truly, your results in your business, sustaining them and scaling them, it is almost always micro shifts, not huge pendulum shifts, and or stacking on small changes or new things. Yes, of course, if you're scaling, if I was going to offer a group program, I'm not planning on that, even though I told you I have a bunch of new ideas, but I'm practicing what I preach. I will be very mindful before actually rolling out any of those ideas. But even if I was going to roll something like that out, that would actually be a pretty big shift. But it would still be what we were talking about at the beginning of our conversation, a very, very intentional change. And it would be stacking something onto a business that is already well-oiled, to a strategy that is already working. It would not be a pendulum swing in terms of, I'm now creating a whole new business. I'm now creating a whole new strategy. This thing isn't working, so let me do this whole new thing over here. In that way, it would still be stacking something on top of something that is already working and well-oiled. And then, let's just say I rolled that out. This is an imaginary world. I don't hold me to like a new offer or anything like that. But crazier things have happened. I'm also allowed to change my mind and offer something else if I want to. But let's just say that world happened. Then even within that, everything we're talking about here would remain true. I would keep what I'm doing well-oiled and stack this thing on top, and then I would let that strategy work for me and make micro shifts within that strategy so that I could scale that and refine that so that it could work better and better for me. I would still focus on the client delivery or the offer delivery, whatever that might be, right? And like work more and more on that. I would still see how can I leave money on the table and not try to do 5 more offers so that I can really maximize this new baby of mine, right? Everything I said would still be true. So I don't want you to hear this conversation today as to mean you need to have a one-on-one only model or you can never have a second offer, because that's not true at all. Most of my clients, as they're scaling, want multiple offers. But even within that world, there's a very big difference between everything we're talking about here in terms of leaving money on the table, really refining and focusing on client and offer delivery, really letting your strategy work for you, and then making those micro shifts versus those pendulum swings and not basing them on emotion, versus doing the opposite of that. And most of the time when I see people have huge highs and huge lows in businesses, or have a hard time reaching the next level in business, or have a hard time sustaining revenue, it's because of one of the things I'm talking about here. And I can just speak from my own experience and from my clients' experience. These are the things I truly, truly focus on more than anything else. And of course, I'm focusing on messaging, I'm focusing on marketing, I'm focusing on sales and all of that. That's the foundation I have underneath it. But this is what I'm really focusing on to bring that revenue in my business. And I just wish we talked about these things more, because I think sometimes we, again, almost the online space almost focuses on the shiny marketing things and not the things that really matter, like year after year after year. I will say we have a couple minutes here. And if you have any other questions before I hop off, let me know. I'm going to share one quick bonus thing here. I will say the other thing that I do always focus on, and this was like my bonus piece here, is everything I just mentioned, like that is my top priority. And I do focus on marketing and sales regularly. Like that is something that is just it is, when I talk about that strategy that is well-oiled, that is my strategy that is well-oiled, and that is something we focus on daily. I'm not necessarily implementing daily because we batch things, and team might be posting or ads might be running or whatever that is, but we have a holistic marketing strategy and a holistic sales process, and that is something I focus on making sure is executed daily, and that we are refining and making those micro shifts, not those huge pendulum swings, on regularly. And it just feels important to say that, because the other thing I think sometimes happens, and I was talking about this with a client recently who just has made a lot of money in business but was just sort of hitting a bottleneck. And one of the things I was reflecting to them is, not making them wrong, but they had just really taken their foot off the gas, so to say, with their marketing and sales, because they'd gotten so focused on client delivery and so kind of in the weeds with that they had kind of let this other side of their business go. And so, of course, what I said earlier, client and offer delivery is team, and that like it is number one priority. And if we're going to sustain results month after month, year after year, we really do want to have that CEO hat on. And I really do see how it is just important to do both. The reason I say fully booked is I keep marketing even when I don't have spots to sell, right? The reason I can always sell spots is even when I don't have something to sell, I'm continuing to grow my audience. I'm continuing to build relationships. I'm not just showing up when I need to make a sale. I'm not just showing up like when I'm in scramble mode. And again, this is not to make anybody wrong. We all have different phases in businesses, but like one of the secrets to it is, in many ways it's just that simple. But I think a lot of us, like, we tend to lean in and out of that based on our emotions, or based on how many clients offers we're delivering, based on what we need in the moment, as opposed to seeing like that is something our business always needs. And that is a great way to avoid burnout, because otherwise, if we're just jumping in to lean into marketing and sales when we really need to make marketing and sales, what we tend to do is, instead of just having kind of a steady, easy flow with it, it is a very frenetic, high pressure, not even, because I think launches can be very chill, but it is, and launches are actually a great example. My clients who have great launch results, the reason for it is not because they're pushing themselves throughout a launch, it's because of all of the ways they've showed up to market and sell before their launch, right? Summer abs are made in the winter, launch results are made pre-launch season. It's kind of the same thing here. If all of the sustainability and sales and revenue in your business is just based on like when you're showing up now, that is so much pressure, and that's really tough, considering in many businesses and many models, if you're not using gross slimy marketing tactics, there are just longer client customer journeys. But it's also how we burn ourselves out, right? Because that's when we have to go like 125%. That's when people start hating social media. That's when people hate launching. That's when people hate marketing and sales. Versus when this is just something that's kind of a steady drip and a part of your ongoing strategy. Not only are you allowing for those relationships to build, so you're kind of always bringing in sales and that sustainability, but it also means you just don't have as heavy of a lift. This is like a worst example, but this will be it's just the example that comes to mind. Y'all know I love my gym. I love my working out. It's so easy for me to work out because I just go regularly. If I was like, I need to get in shape next week and I hadn't worked out in years, I mean, I don't know, I could probably like crash diet and like work out, but I would probably hurt myself. I would probably be miserable. I would probably pass out because this girl needs to eat a lot of food. But if I like hadn't worked out in years, then I was like, well, let me just go work out for 2 hours a day or 3 hours a day, or whatever I need to do. Like, right, I would literally probably injure myself and then say working out sucks, eating well, like this doesn't work for me and suck, as opposed to if I kind of just eat what I want and go to the gym regularly, right, and have a routine that works for me and sustain that. It is just so much easier to sustain that. And then let's just say I wanted to run a race, or I'm taking hip hop choreo classes. Let's just say there was a performance or something, right? I could always step it up a little bit when I need to, but I would have that baseline there and it would be so much easier. So that's my bonus one there. That is something that I'm actually always focusing on. And with that, again, it's then so much easier to let those other pieces we're talking about work for me. And then it's so much easier to look at what are those micro shifts, as opposed to like making those huge pendulum swing shifts. Okay. I don't see any other questions, so I'm gonna hop off. Again, if you want support with any of this, if you need help with your strategy, if you wanna map out, update your messaging because things have changed online, if you need a holistic marketing strategy and sales process, if you wanna map out your launch strategy, your next offer to scale, these are all things I love supporting clients with. I am opening up one strategy intensive, an additional one in May. I have the capacity for it. I thought it'd be fun to do an extra one in May. So I'm opening that up. And then I have a VIP day in the fall that is available as well. So I have one VIP day coming up in the fall. So I will drop a link for a free coaching consultation if you're interested in that, and then I will talk with y'all next week. I hope this was helpful. Love y'all. Bye.